Our home, the Earth, is changing. To protect our beautiful planet, we too must change. With the goal of creating a green community, Marubeni is striving to begin that change. From a port town in Denmark, land farming salmon, delivering sustainable food without harming the ocean, to growing trees from seedlings in Indonesia and Australia, engaging in environmentally friendly forest management, and creating a healthy forest life cycle. To helping growers on U.S. farms, using technology to monitor soil conditions, to keep the soil rich and produce a stable harvest. To Chile and Portugal, where water projects using our extensive experience and knowledge ensure that people have clean water for their daily lives. Marubeni will continue to draw upon decades of business expertise and networks to further drive our efforts to create a sustainable society. The road ahead is long. To change the world, we'll create innovations beyond our imagination. Uniting people and organizations around the world, we can go further together. A forerunner in green business. Marubeni.
So on this particular coverage, this has the longest segment of the night, just a little precursor, okay? This is a really in-depth, detailed outline that we have for you tonight. Shout out to Menalagwar, who provided a lot of the info. There will be a lot of note reading, not so much like word for word, but there will be some of that because it's in regards to his own notes, and it needs to flow well. So when you see me do a lot of this, it's because I do need to reference some of his notes, and then we'll get into like some actual visuals, all that stuff. It's been a while since I've done a collaboration with Menalagwar, and I do appreciate his in-depth research. Really cool stuff. So the first thing we're going to get into is what seems to be important. Okay, so let's start off with some of the notes, basically. Basically, it's like this. We know when it comes to Jasmy, at some point, you're going to hear about Internet of Things. You're going to hear about especially Sony. So it's like, it's saying goes, get used to it. But in regards to Sony in the United Nations Office for Project Services, which is called UN Ops, interesting name, announced the launch of a collaborative program for innovation all the way back in 2020. Now, before you say this is a nothing burger and that we're going too far back in time, we will reference years ago as much as we feel like. Why is that? Because it's good to do that. Just like on yesterday's coverage, I talked about fintechs. Shout out to IC Amphibian, right? Fintechs of 2016. Why reference that? Because Shinzo Abe put a lot of emphasis on American companies investing in fintechs back in 2015. Now, Shinzo Abe, RAP to him. But if anything, you saw a lot of it come to fruition. So it's always good to point out the past and bring it into the present. Here's another example of just that. Back to the whole thing of UN Ops. This partnership in itself is the first of its kind in the world. Now, has that not grabbed your attention? When I saw this earlier, I said to myself, interesting, Menalagwar. I can see why you're so passionate about this. It says, with Sony being the first company to enter into the collaboration agreement in the area of innovation with, of course, UN Ops, the collaboration itself began with the Global Innovation Challenge. Now, basically, that is a program that is hosted by UN Ops to support startups. Yeah, kind of like how I did that, right? So yesterday, you could consider that part one because it's fintech startups. Now here's part two, enter into the whole thing of Menalagwar. Companies providing solutions to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are called SDGs, UN Ops and Sony jointly developed the theme for the Global Innovation Challenge. The theme was, quote, advancing resilient infrastructure with technology in the face of climate change. Now, we've seen numerous examples when it comes to Jasmy and, this carbon credit consortium. You guys see me joke around with Magic Power. Shout out to our brother Magic Power when it comes to, the Rice Cup Consortium. Now, I joke about it. We're having fun. But in reality, Jasmy is very, very serious when it comes to climate change, carbon credits, just like Hedera is, right? They're a lot more smaller of a company based on market cap, but they do have a big focus on just that. And that is specifically the whole thing of climate change, and rightfully so. Now, getting more into this. In the notes, it says that there were selected startups and companies on how they were able to move into the Global Innovation Center of just that, UN Ops. They were, of course, established in Kobe, Hyogo Prefecture. Remember how many times we talked about Kobe, Hyogo Prefecture before in other deep dives? I don't know. Some of you guys pay attention to this. Some of you don't. And it's okay. But basically speaking, that was an innovation accelerator program. I think we even talked about, for instance, this is right, Kunitake Ando. Ando was at the forefront of this because of his connection, his plug with his particular university for innovation and all that, and we tied the whole thing in. So that's a whole other thing. But basically speaking, this program, which is called SSAP, and other programs designed to offer various forms of support for realizing those specific ideas and so on and so forth. Through this collaboration, back to the whole thing of UN Ops and Sony, this aimed to provide solutions to social issues by supporting more social entrepreneurs, right? Your fintech startups and so on, etc., etc. They strive to realize everyone's ideas and create a sustainable and prosperous society. Back to that whole thing of Society 5.0. It's not going to go away because you want to know something? We're talking about Japan here. And it's that big goal. I like the idea of common goals. Say what you want. When you understand cultures, you understand their goals. I'm sure at some point some of you guys have stayed at, like, I don't know, certain particular hotels. I'll throw this one out. It's one I used to work for back in 2007 to 2009. It's Best Western. And numerous times I was working in, for instance, calling the hotels, talking to either a manager or the owner, who happens to be both. And it's like a mom and pop type of thing. Their whole, for instance, the culture, like there's a lot of properties that you have, for instance, people from India, right? And they come over to the United States, but they own these hotels. Or for instance, you would see some people from like Vietnam and they own these hotels. I don't know how many, Mr. Patels I talked to, right? A whole bunch. But the key thing is you would always see this thing of a common goal. And what I mean by that is you would see the whole family working for the family business. And, it was, for some people are like, well, in American culture, you see a lot of cases where, the father is doing this particular job. The mother might be, staying at home, or she might be doing her own type of job after the kids are gone and grown up and so on. And then those kids, they're doing whatever. And maybe they become a doctor, a lawyer, mechanic, whatever the case be. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, the key common factor here is different cultures who buy into one key goal, whether it's a hotel, whether it's the restaurant industry. How many restaurants have you guys been to where, for instance, like you go to a Chinese restaurant and then it's just like there's a whole bunch of people from that family that work at that restaurant? Even here in Phoenix, right? There's a lot of Southwest type food, right? Mexican restaurants and so on. But it's a family-owned business. Now, take what I just stated to you in that example and apply it to a whole country. Do you not understand the bigger picture of Society 5.0? I like the idea of these examples that we use and understand that it's towards this common goal for all of it. So the point being made here is difference of cultures, this collaboration being included in co-hosting like workshops, participating together in events. They, as in the UN ops, support the creation of businesses, the operations, the startups, new value for the world. Sony continued to work on solving various issues targeted by SDGs that contribute, of course, to the development of sustainable society. Sony Group Portal, the United Nations Office for Project Services, and Sony, listen to this, signed a collaboration agreement a while ago to pursue innovation. Now, this is really, really good. And let's just take you to an example with a visual. So I wanted to introduce that part to you. And here it is, straight from the UN Ops. This is how it first started. We'll get more to the present. But UN Ops and Sony Corporation joined forces back then for that pursuit of innovation. As you can see here, and I'll blow it up a little bit more because I thought I had it on 175%. I usually go with 175% for you guys to see real quick. That agreement back in 2020 between UN Ops and Japanese technology giant Sony aims to promote just that. Innovation, tech in support of sustainable development goals. So we're just going to call it SDGs from now on. If you missed that, always go back and rewind and hear what it's called. Look at this quote. UN Ops is strongly committed to helping address our world's biggest challenges, says the executive director, Greta Ferrimo. Innovation, technology, and bold new partnerships between the public and private sectors will be needed to ensure we make real progress towards implementation of the SDGs. How many times do we talk about implementation? Now, of course, Jasmy's not ISO 222, but we'll talk your ear off. I'll talk your ear off. Everybody in the comments will talk your ear off about this implementation, right? Because we understand that it's utility in motion. How would you like to have an example of the common goal of where we need to go and the implementation of some of these things? I'm telling you flat out, once people realize how powerful Jasmy's technology, this personal data locker, and how they get the whole thing of data privacy, it's absolute game changer. Because you want to know something? Ethereum garbage of that utility being used because you're forced to use crap, and let's just call it, it's crap, for meme tokens and NFTs and all this slow tech because you have no choice, but that's the utility in motion? How about a solid, good utility that's in freaking motion? So, for one, look at this. Progress towards implementation, SDGs, including ending poverty. That sounds great. God bless the people who want to end poverty, for crying out loud. You know, it is so much easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the gates of heaven. That particular quote, yes, from the Bible. Reducing inequalities and tackling the climate crisis. Part of this collaboration, UN Ops, Sony will jointly select startup businesses and technologies companies that are focused on SDGs to work together with the UN Ops. That's good. Other activities will include co-hosting, workshops, and events focused on innovation. I'm not going to even have to read the rest of this, but your key focus should be on focused events for innovation. Who are some of the fintechs that come out and rise from the ashes of innovation? I don't have to spell it out for you. You know where I'm going with this. Let's take you to the next particular part of this coverage. So I want to get into just double checking the notes, if you will. Okay, so we're good on that. Let's take you to this next part. UN Ops, just like you see on the screen, nice and big for you. And Sony launched this collaboration. They now accept submissions for business ideas for Global Innovation Challenge. Yes, now cited April 21st, 2020. It says it's a 3-minute read. I'll try to give it to you as quick as I can. I'm going to blow this up a little bit more for you guys as well. And you see, cited from Tokyo, Japan, UN Office for Project Services announced this, of course, right? So I'm going to go further down on this. UN Ops and Sony jointly developed the theme for global innovation, challenge business ideas, so on and so forth. References back the whole thing of Kobe Hyogo Prefecture. Participants will have access to these particular events, the innovation startups, the accelerated program. Who is also doing an accelerated program, guys? Think about it. Jasmy's currently doing it, and they're doing it in regards to grants, hence why you're starting to see some of those pop up. But all you need is a good one from those grants programs to be a great contributor for the ecosystem. Look at this. Participation in the Sony Startup Acceleration Program, SSAP, and other programs designed to offer various forms of support realizing their ideas, advancing resilient infrastructure in the face of climate change, audio, video files, data, interesting, on climate, natural resources such as forests, oceans, and unstructured data. So when we use all these examples of, boarding a bullet train and all that stuff, you guys are probably tired of me talking about that by now, or, going on the Japanese version of an Uber. But what about actual data on climate change? A personal data locker can basically also be used for that. We know that when it comes to Jasmy, IoT sensors up the wazoo. Regional diversity. UN Ops, Sony established the above theme as accurately analyzing and utilizing that data through sensing. Look at this, guys. I mean, it's right plain as day. And AI tech. AI tech cited in 2020. That's interesting because last I saw, AI tech has been more and more popular in recent years. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there was, we were talking about back then, but not as profound as where we're at right now, and not as profound as what we discovered, like, for instance, with the advancements of things like ChatGPT, Bard, you name it, right? This will contribute to the enrichment of ocean, forest. Interesting. Forest-based resources. Remember Mr. Yoshida, Dream Force? Through this global innovation challenge, UNOPS will provide necessary platforms for sustaining efforts to address environmental issues with SDGs, where Sony will provide necessary support in the areas of investment. This is good stuff. Technology, business development, education. When I think of, for instance, some of this, I'm literally thinking, especially when it comes to education, I think of the Giga School concept. And we did 3 videos on it. All right, some of those aren't here on this channel. I get it. By supporting the creation of business operations of startups that create the new value of the world, Gilbert Verdian's always talking about the internet of value. But what about that new value of the world? UNOPS and Sony will continue to work on solving various issues targeted by SDGs and contribute to the development of sustainable society. I'm not going to talk your ear off on what UNOPS is. I think we talked about a little bit earlier. This part is good, though. Global Innovation Center is an incubation facility of UNOPS, which collects and fosters startups in Japan. Again, this is part 2. Because fintechs should be your key takeaway in regards to this and how they get that funding. Yesterday's coverage, if you missed it, because you're talking about pogo sticks and Caroline or whatever the heck you're talking about, understand that the key thing you should take away from this is that you have a big particular one, a Finno Labs. If you saw the video, it was chopped up, released today, and how that is over $1 billion in yen, which comes out to be roughly, I think, $665 million American. That's still nothing to bat an eye at, right? And all the talented people that are part of that team. And if anything, when this gets chopped up at the end, you will see a card. They'll give you a link to that particular video. Highly recommend you watch that, especially if you're Jasmy holder. Now look at this. This procurement to services provide solutions to achieve the SDGs created in Japan. My God. What about the one that specializes in the collection of data, privatized data, IoT, sensors, you name it? You know where I'm going with that. UNOS plans to open Global Innovation Center in 15 locations around the world. That's good. Look at this for a moment. Even in the Caribbean. That's crazy. So Hyogo Prefecture wants to be the third center. There's, of course, this whole thing about SSAP. I won't get too super into it, but your key takeaway should be that Sony Startup Accelerated Program was originally launched in 2014. So even though, this is something for 3 years ago, this has been around for a while, right? And we know the Jasmy plug to Sony, do we not? Look, it says the Seed Accelerated Program, aiming to support the creation and business operations of startups. Comprehensive system, been formed to provide support from ideation, which means like from the time it started. Think about this for a second, because Jasmy started off in 2016 and then became public in 2021. Incubation, marketing to business expansion. Business expansion. What is Jasmy looking to do? They're looking to take the whole thing of a Jasmy, secure PC offices in Silicon Valley, take this thing worldwide, right? Expansion. Sony has screened 750 new business projects. So they screen them, and if anything, they empower them. But it's 750 new business projects to date, both in Japan and overseas. So this pounds it home that much more about why this is significant. Now, let me jump back to the notes because I don't want to skip anything. Minalagawar was stating that we all need to see that particular part. So we did see that particular part. He wants to point out the key takeaway for you should basically be that this supercharges the progress towards SDGs with better data. Right. What kind of better data? And which one that could be a fintech from a while back will be supercharged? Again, you can draw your own conclusion in regards to that. Sony Startup Acceleration Program has supported, of course, the creation of business operations of various startups. We share that with you, so I won't get to that part. They created, for instance, unparalleled signal quality for wearable devices. I'm thinking about like what Jasmy can offer, bring to the table when it comes to IoT signal devices. They have also created, in regards to, sorry, I skipped over that part, Idun Technologies as a company, all right? They specifically created what is called the Dryo Tech. Listen to this for a second. It's a sensor that can be placed in headphones. I'm wearing headphones. And the point of why we're sharing this is it can also be placed in hearing aids to record the brain signals of its users. Now, this part is a little speculative, but it's kind of juicy. Because we know, of course, in the past, Elon Musk went to Japan and so on, and people questioned the reasons why he went over there. My thing was because of the data privacy problems that he has, and that part was pointed out, even though it wasn't mentioned specifically about Jasmy. But we do know with Neuralink that he is gung-ho 100% when it comes to the brain repairing the body and possibly curing certain diseases like Alzheimer's and you name it, right? So this company of Idun Technology, which is a company that develops and manufactures comfortable sensors providing unparalleled signal quality of wearable devices, I think that is a big deal. Listen to this. We talk about Neuralink. The neural interface enables the understanding of human emotions to create empathetic technology. Their brain analytics platform consists of in-ear EEG earbuds and cloud-based solution. Now that part you want to pay attention as well, because if we have a cloud-based solution, now enter the whole thing of what we have in regards to Jasmy with the whole thing of their Web3 cloud storage solution. All these things that we're talking about in regards to a neural interface and that collection of that particular data of what's going on with the brain signals to the users and so on is such valuable, extremely valuable data. Remember I was talking about that, when it comes to your personal data locker and things like that, certain people's data will be worth more than other people's data. How many times have I been talking about that for a while? Well, it's simple if you really look more into it, because if you have just a random person, like, no offense to kids, but if all they're doing 24/7 365 is just sitting on their phone and looking up like what kind of loot box they can get for Apex Legends or Fortnite or wherever the case be, that might not be considered all that valuable data. That data might only be worth like $5 or something like that. But data in regards to the recording of a neural interface that enables the understanding of human emotions to create empathetic technology, and that could be plugged into brain analytics to perform and consist of all sorts of operations of just that, the recording of a person's brain. Last I checked, even brain surgeons, right? They get paid like crazy amounts of money. So that's extremely valuable data. What happens when you have a personal data logger that sees this crazy, data? Say what you want, maybe you don't agree with everything with what Will Fix mentions in regards to his examples of, for instance, utility in motion, when he mentions like crazy price levels for Ripple's XRP. But for me, I kind of get that. His examples that he uses in regards to how we get some crazy market cap, and it sounds like it's hopium and so on. So what? So what if it's hopium? But the point is, those are good examples of the value of like different central banks and so on. Now, come back to the whole thing of this concept of digital oil, as you guys would call it. Different levels of the value of data. This is a great example from Inalogware. I give them a dab on the information because now I get a visual of how it all comes together. Earbuds, like we talked about earlier, cloud-based solution. This powerful combination empowers enterprise to deliver personalized interventions, enhancing the well-being of end users. They are at the forefront of the next generation of wearables. And have that tied into a PDL, a personal data locker? Do you not understand the bigger picture of what you have and why you freaking hold the thing? Do not allow people to FUD you out of your Jasmy. My God. Because you know what? There will be a bigger picture for all of this when that adoption is needed, and it's just, boom, we need it now. All right, a little bit more about this. Idun Technologies is also at the forefront of neurotechnology industry with their brain analytics platform enabled by in-ear EEG earbuds. They empower businesses, research to build brain-powered products and services for a wide range of use cases, such as sleep and cognitive workload. As you guys know, I have sleep apnea problems. People pointed out in the comments, who's this guy that always looks like he's got a black eye? Hey, I suffer from sleep apnea. I cannot tolerate CPAP. I made that clear. I will figure out something in future. But look at this program. I know you guys don't see this. Is notes from him. Program Europe, Idun Tech added Sony, listen to this, as one of its investors. So for anybody who's like, well, it still doesn't say Jasmy. It doesn't have to say Jasmy. How many times have we give you an examples, even the previous segment, right? I was talking about quant and how all that speculation is now verifiable because you literally see it referenced from the Internet Engineering Task Force. The point is, you don't have to have things written out, but you can connect the dots. Again, I'll state again, Idun Tech added Sony as one of its investors. In-ear EEG earbuds to monitor brain activity, Idun Technologies. Now, I want to take you over to this next part. Okay? So let's get into this. I know it seems like I'm giving like a long lecture on this, but this is good stuff. If you own Jasmy or even thinking about getting into Jasmy, be paying attention to this. I'll tell you this much. I'll be paying attention a heck of a lot more to this stuff than I would be about, hey, Buddy Bruno did a live AMA about dog crap Inu and how it's going to provide future possible utility to people who use a toilet scrubber. Wow, really? That's so cool. Can't wait to invest in that. Hey, man, forget that. Check out something that actually is going to have real world utility for the future. Invest in your own future, not financial advice, but I just bring you guys some research. So is Men in Logware. All right. Here it is from UNOF, supercharging progress towards the SDGs with better data. Better data. Now, fast forward to what? July 2023. Oh, we just went 3 years, did we not? Yep, we sure did. So check this out. It's getting better. Geographic information systems may just be a secret ingredient. And notice what this says here, secret ingredient. Last I checked, secret ingredients probably are not going to be listed for everybody around the world, because secret ingredients also lead to what? Non-disclosure agreements. Do they not? They do. To accelerate progress on the sustainable development goals. Look at the modern challenges of this. For the past 10 years, they have demonstrated how fragile and vulnerable many health systems are around the world. If we have any doubt, we need to look at the struggle during, for instance, the pandemic. The issue is compounded by the increased severe and unpredictable weather events. This was back to the whole thing of IoT being able to record some of this stuff with the sensors, you name it, and so on. Talks about the vulnerabilities we see tend to be more concentrated in the world's least developed countries, forcing the rural and urban poor to bear the brunt of these problems. Lack of services, as well as inequalities and inequities in service delivery, prevent communities from accessing key services like health. What should be one of your key takeaways here that sounds very familiar to this? Stellar talks about this all the time, giving access to the unaccessed. Now, let's enter into the whole thing of digital oil. Do you not understand the common thing here? This turn keeps our global community from achieving Sustainable Development Goal 3, good health and well-being. We must recognize the problem for what it is, a global one. We must recognize the problem for what it is with what they're trying to accomplish in Japan, Society 5.0. That also is a global one because they're taking it to other countries. It's not enough that we build health infrastructure. We must develop health infrastructure. Health infrastructure, the data being recorded with that. How much will that data be worth compared to a teenager who just wants to buy a loot box on Fortnite? Difference is huge. Let me get back into this. I'm going to read the notes real quick. Hold on a second. All right. So, yes, UN Ops ongoing project with Sony. Okay. I think that's the point I was just trying to state. So I'm going to share this part a little bit more. Right. Let's jump into this. And what is the GIS? Just for a second. I know that I told you guys earlier, this is a long one, but it's a good one. So, what is the GIS? GIS stands for geographic information systems. It's to capture, store, and represent spatial data. Now, in regards to this, you may be wondering, what the heck is that? And I'll be with you. All right. So spatial data. All right. We're going to give you that definition. I'll just give you right from Google. Spatial data is any type. You guys see this? Let me double check the screen. Yep, you see it. All right. It's any type of data that directly and indirectly references a specific geographic area or, of course, location. Like I always mention, Jasmy's going to be all over this like a fat kid on cake. Like maybe the fattest kid of all fattest kids on cake. Max, you're the fattest kid of all fattest kids on cake. Yes, sir. I am. I'm fully aware of that. But the point is how this represents, like what they're trying to do in Japan, other places in the world, and so on. Anyway, that gives you the definition of that. Let's jump back to what we have in regards to GIS. You will see here that one GIS map can show everything from roads, buildings, and power grids. Power grids. Don't you just love how we consistently reference all of these things like it's freaking clockwork, like an assembly line of information for the last, I don't know, almost a year now? Power grids. Why mention power grids again? If you've been paying attention to the coverage of these deep dives, it's because of Tadashi Morita and what he has brought to the table and when it comes to DC microgrid technology. Again, Jasmy's killing it with this all-star team, but the fudders will make most people doubt themselves. Never doubt the research, just doubt the freaking fudders because they don't know squat. To vegetation and bodies of water, as well as information about community behavior in regards to GIS mapping and the tech. GIS technology advancements over the past few decades offers a sophisticated way of creating maps, and of course, more to that. But the bottom line, it's going to supercharge progress towards the SDGs, like we talked about before. Why? Because it gives decision makers the data they need to answer questions. decision makers. Again, back to Genki Oda. Oh, I knew Max was going to reference Genki Oda again. I have to, because he is a decision maker. He is one of the biggest decision makers. So do you not understand how we tie all of this together? How about this? Having populations and situations accurately represented on maps can counter presumptions and mitigate the risk of misjudgment. I mean, when we talk about the tech, if you've ever seen the movie Minority Report, they predict things in advance, right? Like crimes in advance. What about other things in advance based on the data? When we watch the weather, for instance, watch a meteorologist. That meteorologist is trying to prepare us for like a 10-day forecast, 30-day. They don't have 100% perfect, but now you can take into the whole thing of AI tech, right? Because it's getting a heck of a lot better. We know that it's getting almost dangerously better. Apply that to some of these examples. Like I said, be informed, use GIS data to make decisions. But the point is that data being used over and over and over, isn't that utility in motion? And if we're invested into utility like we claim that we are, don't we want to see it paired up with all this stuff that are the enablers to make better decisions of, I don't know, climate, what's going on with a person's brain, healthcare, you name it? Yeah, I think so. Look at this statement real quick. Rural Axis Index measurement tool developed by the World Bank in 2006 is very helpful for this type of mapping. I wasn't even aware about this dating back to 2006. Listen to this for a second. Its data can be used to inform decisions that take place in healthcare infrastructure while making distance of the catchment population for greater accessibility and efficiency. GIS models based on satellite imagery. Oh my God. Remember when we did the whole thing of those examples of the satellites? Shout out to Menel Aguilar. He's actually the one that provided some of that. Maybe it was all him, and also NeoXtrix. So I apologize on maybe a combination of both. But GIS models based on satellite imagery. We gave you those examples, I think, maybe a month or two ago. Okay, that's a real thing. And other auxiliary data can help us understand migratory patterns, uncover distribution of land rights. Remember we talked about that? It was particular project that Jasmy was doing that sounded similar to what Dematra was doing with agriculture. By the way, Dematra is up like 30%. Shout out to all you guys with Dematra. Based on these models, we can deliver healthcare programs such as vaccinations. Don't get into this right now. To these communities, depending on where they are in a particular time of year. We can also use GIS tools for disease surveillance to map outbreaks in these communities. The key is the tools, the data being collected. Data being collected is utility in motion. Personal data locker being paired up with all this information, tech, data is utility in motion, not garbage utility in motion. Like, for instance, Ethereum gas fees to mint NFTs and use it for dog crap Inu, right? Right. Now, jumping more back to what we have from Minalagwar, I think there's a little bit more. Let's see if we can pull this up. So Minalagwar also goes on into detail about a few key more things. He wants us to look into, for instance, a little bit more from Idun Tech, and I meant to show you a little bit. So I shared some of the notes in regards to that. Some great visualizations from Idun Tech, IDUN. So let's pull that up and get that to you. So here's the site. It is iduntechnologies.com, just in case you want to nerd it out. And it's unlocking the power of the brain, like what we mentioned. We already gave you a lot of examples. I just wanted you to kind of see the site. Everything that was referenced in the notes is here. I apologize, Min and Logor, if it wasn't like perfectly synced. I do my best to, sync it up perfectly. But yeah, guys, plain as day. I mean, I'll blow this up a little bit more, just in case you're on your couch. Like who? Like Boomer F and Sooner. I always reference him. Because, nice to be comfortable. So, yes, the world's first brain analytics platform enabled by in-ear EEG earbuds. We're not making this up. We're not pulling this out of thin air. Our brain sensing earbuds integrated full stack cloud-based solution. Interesting. Everything that we see when it comes to Jasmy, some people question it. But when you take more of the deeper dives, then it's like, I get it now. And I do get it now. There's going to be some people that don't get it. There's going to be some people who are like, unless I see direct partnerships and things that are not speculative mentioned now, then forget it. Oh, okay, great. Good for you. Good for you. So you are going to get into Jasmy basically when it's well over a penny. Or you're going to get into Jasmy when it's over 25 cents or a buck. That's when you're going to choose to get it. Because guess what? Once that's all verified, those are the basic prices you're going to see. So why would you not want to accumulate now? I still don't get why people don't do it. And yes, Jasmy's up. Thank God it is, right? I'm back into the profits. But my thing is, it is still an absolute buy, even at the 0.004 level. Okay? Look what it says here. Cloud-based solution where data is analyzed and insights can be generated. That's utility in freaking motion. Take you to the next part of this because Menelaguire wants us to put a little emphasis on this. The Internet of Humans is based on data. Yeah, no kidding. Look at this. Cal Trudeau, expert in data science at Idun Technologies. Here's that guy. He says, for instance, or he explains, right, his role within the company, why data required a bunch of competencies to make a good use of it. The research purpose is the key component to define what makes good data set or not. A good data set. So do you like the example I gave you earlier? Because that example earlier about the kid, nothing against the kids, they're playing Fortnite or whatever they're playing, right? You know, I mean, we live in a crazy times. I mean, count your blessings. If you got a kid that's, you know, there was times in which kids go outside and you never see them again. Kids that stay inside. I don't know. We got to have a balance. I get that. But the key thing is good data sets, right? Good data sets and also valuable data compared to just invaluable data. To understand the information, we need to cross data science with neuroscience. This will allow us to bring a valuable output based on empathetic technologies. Now, I want to state this. Where you see this statement of cross data science with neuroscience, I want you guys to finally have these examples, and I already gave you guys some, about the difference of the value of this data. Because we could talk about digital oil all day long, but there's also like enriched oil. You get what I'm saying? Enriched data. There's going to be data that's just simply worth way more than other data sets. This will allow to bring valuable output. Again, back to what I was just saying, on an empathetic technology. What counts is to provide a useful feedback to every individual, right? Every individual with a personal data locker especially. With this understanding, the Internet of Humans may have a huge potential in many domains. Let's make it happen. You know, who are you? Like he says, he always wanted to leap into action doing neurotech for end customers or consumers. What led him to, for instance, Idun Technologies. There's a lot of great information here. But I do like this statement, right? This is good stuff. And again, some people, you know, especially the fudders, they're going to point out, oh, this is just a coincidence. Say what you want. Heck of a coincidence. He's from the famous Dortmund for all soccer fans. Is he secretly Sagan Tosu soccer? I'm not saying that's the case, but call it what you want. That's kind of cool. He has two main topics of interest: surgical robotics and neuroscience. So you want to know something? I mean, even though some of the stuff doesn't say Jasmy, sure feels like it. Sure feels like, you know what? I can see why Mr. Menelaguire and Mr. Maximus point some of this stuff out. Because you understand the bigger picture. You're not getting fudded out from some of these guys who have never done the research. They just look at my thumbnail and be like, Jasmy scum. Yeah, I had to say that at least one time on the show. Convinced about the future technology in medicine, this guy started to study biomedical engineering, but he felt something was missing. He wanted to understand the brain. I'm telling you flat out, guys, when we talk about Elon Musk and Neuralink, and we talk about, for instance, data privacy, and we talk about maybe like crazy, I know this is a lot of speculation, I get that, I totally get that, but if you tie in where Japan is compared to where we are in the US, I'm just going to be honest, it's an absolute night and day difference. So there's that. It says this brought him to dive into neuroscience for the last 10 years between Korea and Germany, doing mainly researches about the use of data, diagnostic, and treat mental diseases. Now, let's go back to the whole thing with Jasmy for a second. We have talked numerous times about Jasmy, and especially when it comes to Care Project. Care Project is also partnered with Ripple. He says, now here he is. He always wanted to leap into action doing neurotech for end consumers. That's what led him to Idun Technologies. But neurotech, how big is this particular industry going to be in the future? I mean, I'd be asking that. So for one, what I'm going to find out real quick, and I'm just going to do a quick search. I have this on the other tab. Let me pull this up real quick. But there's valuable information in regards to, the value of how much the stuff is worth. So, all right, if I have this on the other tab, I didn't. So basically speaking, that the neurotechnology industry, listen to this, guys, is worth an estimated $12.82 billion. This is according to a 2022 report, because let's face it, 2023 is not completely done. We still have like a couple months, right? We're in November. But it is projected to reach, for instance, $38.17 billion by the year 2032. And this represents a compound annual growth rate of 11.53%. That is worth pointing out. Getting back into what we have, we're going to now enter into the last part of the coverage. I don't know, 75, 80% mark. I don't know. Let's see how we're doing. I guess an okay turnout tonight, and that's okay. We'll chop it up and get you more about this. So I'm going to jump back into the notes because I want to respect what Minimagor has. I don't want to hop around too much. But back to this guy from Idun Tech, okay? He says that this is why this example is very interesting, the concept here, the Internet of Things, like some of the things I was talking about. Stepping connecting devices, systems around the world, providing unprecedented levels of data and control of that data. The next evolution would be the Internet of Humans, IOH. I know that sounds nuts, right? But it's a concept that involves integrating humans into the digital network. And if anything, this is kind of like the Matrix, if you really think about it. It's just like, wow, so many things are like science fiction. Say what you want, whether you're a fan of Andrew Tate and whatnot. But to me, this is an example of the Matrix, because Internet of Humans and plugging us into a digital network literally sounds like the Matrix to me. Yeah, I think I'm going to use that as my intro. How you guys see the Maximus intros. Hopefully you like them. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't care. I'm going to use the Maximus Matrix one. So you see the chopped up one, you'll see that on the intro. But the IOH concept is about creating a more mindful and critically reflective internet, where tech is used to enhance human life without surrendering autonomy. It's about accentuating the democratization of affordances of tech. Wow. Isn't Jasmy all over that also like a fat kid on cake? The transition from IoT to IOH, just in case you forgot the term, Internet of Humans, would involve not just connecting devices, not just that, but also connecting humans in a way that respects individual autonomy and also, of course, privacy. That is worth pointing out, because we have mentioned numerous times that the X platform definitely has that problem. And just to also double check, the X platform is Japan is either the second or third. That's the second or third biggest market is Japan. So you have to recognize that. That's a problem that needs to be resolved. Now, in regards to wearable tech, biometrics, which is always cited in regards to Jasmy, Fitz, and so on. Wits, where you want to pronounce it. There's other forms of human-computer interaction. Now listen to this. It's important to note that this transition would also raise significant ethical and privacy concerns. Well, true. And if anything, you're going to see people, especially when it comes to Neuralink or some of these other things, they're probably going to have to sign a waiver, basically, because this is brand new tech. Never been used before and so on. And if anything, it just kind of opens up a Pandora's box, no pun intended. The use of personal data would need to be carefully managed to ensure privacy and consent. In conclusion, while the Internet of Things, IoT, has laid the groundwork for connected devices, the transition to IoH would involve integrating humans into this network in a way that enhances human life while respecting individual autonomy and, of course, privacy. All right, let's jump into this part. It's Marubeni, or Beanie, if I pronounce that right. I have to share this because it needs to make sense, because it's Bajit, okay? And Mr. Menelagwar wants us to know that, of course, when he was doing his research, he found something that was quite interesting in regards to one specific video in regards to Bajit. And it is cited here. So for one, we're going to jump into that. But before we do so, this site that you see, Marubeni, they have 480 consolidated companies under one umbrella. Basically speaking, it's one of 5 Sogo Shosha of Japan, and other 4 are Sumitomo, Mitsui, like we always talk about, Mitsubishi, and Itochi. All of those. And here's the good part for all the people who are like, Max, why did you do that thing about Berkshire Hathaway? Well, you have to watch that video. But all 4 of these, listen to this, guys, were Berkshire invested. How beautiful is that? All right, let's take you over to this and why I support. So on April 27th, 2023, not that long ago, Marubeni Corporation, like it says, formed a business and capital alliance with Bajit. They based it in the People's Republic of Bangladesh. They provide IT services, of course, for Japan, Europe, United States, Asian markets, and will enter the offshore DX services business as a next generation social infrastructure. Oh my goodness. The alliance was announced at MOU exchange ceremony held during the Bangladesh Trade and Investment Summit in Tokyo on April 27th. Now, some of these things, I'm going to be honest, I didn't see this posted by Hara. Maybe it is out there. I haven't seen it. Funny how some of that stuff works when you look more into it. A big shout out with thanks to Menelagwar going the extra mile when it comes to the research. Look at this. Demand for IT services such as software development are, of course, increasing. Digital transformation, global scale, contributing to social and corporate transformation, productivity, improvement, operational efficiency. Offshore software development market is growing at an annual rate of 15%, with the global market size estimated to reach about 112 billion US dollars in 2028. That's still not that far away, from 36 billion USD in 2020. That's a big, huge leap. However, there's a shortage of the IT engineers who are driving DX due to the diversification and complexity of technologies. Right, there's a shortage. But who is one guy who is an engineer as part of this? Yep, you better believe it. Got to reference him again. Mr. Tadashi Morita. Now, in regards to the People's Republic of Bangladesh, they have an IT policy, Smart Bangladesh Vision 2041. I know it sounds crazy, guys. We talk about, smart cities and Society 5.0. Some of these references go all the way up to like 2050. So this one's 2041, right? In regards to Bangladesh. They're supporting this whole IT industry, human resource development, with the goals of making it the country's second major industry following the textile industry and expanding IT exports. which stood at 1.4 billion in 2019 to 5 billion. So do you see the consistent thing here? It's growth, exponential growth, having crazy compound annual growth rates, right, on CAGR, crazy percentages. How about this? IT workforce is currently estimated at 2 million, forecast to reach 3 million. So they're employing more people. Many talented IT engineers with high English proficiency, IT skills. Bijit Group, because we need to get to that part real quick, because we know how big they are tied into Jasmy. Bijit Group currently has 700 IT engineers based in Bangladesh. They've been supporting clients' DX promotion for over 20 years by providing high-quality IT services, wide range of tech areas, including development, testing, maintenance, operation of web and mobile applications, web and mobile applications, web and mobile applications. Come on, guys. I'm just being honest. It's literally, it says it for you right there, including major corporations. Bijit has also expanded its services areas to cutting-edge tech, including AI, IoT, blockchain. I wonder who that could be. I mean, come on. Are we oblivious to this at this point? Are we really oblivious to this at this point? I don't think we are. More of its operating its own IT training and development institute and strengthening its technical capabilities. Marubeni will accelerate Bijit's group's global expansion. Awesome. Here's your plug. Here's your connect. I know some guys don't like me saying it, but I'm going to say it all day. That's a great example. And serves function to expansion by leveraging just that, its global network. So here's another example of how we're going to reach what? Mass adoption. Watch out for the height of this particular bull market, or especially when we get into a utility run. Business promotion capability, supporting Bijit Group to make a leap forward. I love that terminology, a leap forward, in becoming a global IT company in a capacity of a strategic partner. Who could that strategic partner be? I'm just being honest. Look at more into it for yourself. Some of you guys are like, not you guys, but some people are like, I don't know about this Max guy. This is all speculation. Want to know something? My speculation has shown on my portfolio that I'm up quite a bit. So, yes, dust the shoulder off. Through the alliance, Marubeni will contribute to the DX of society and of companies and the support of the realization of social and corporate transformation by utilizing digital technologies. The realization of Society 5.0, for crying out loud. I mean, come on, guys. It's right there for you. I could get into all this about, all this stuff, but, you do see this. Businesses that develop software application provide other IT services for overseas companies. And the maintenance, there's Bijit, head office, Bangladesh. Here's some of these people. MOU exchange ceremony. I mean, they meet, right? They absolutely meet. Shows you kind of like how it all started back in 2001. Even shows how Bijit of Japan came into the mix. I need to drink something real quick. That's what's going on. Yeah, but it shows how Bijit Japan came in the mix, but also all these other ones. All right. Providing diverse development teams. Exports continue to grow at high rate. I don't know, it's all there for anybody who wants to take more of a deeper look into it, if you choose to do so. All right, let me stop the share on that one. Let me get more into the notes for a second, because there is a little bit more. So let me see if I'm not muted. I'm not. All right, cool. So anyway, there's a little bit more about this. So we talked about the whole thing about those four: Sumitomo, Mitsui, Mitsubishi, and Itochi, all four, Berkshire Hathaway invested. And of course, now let's get into this video. The video, like he says, is a very profound video on understanding how those 5 huge companies work. Very long video. Obviously, we can't get into all of this, but it's something to be said. So hold on a second. Before we get into that video, I apologize. I do need to show you this part real quick. And it's before the video because Menalogware, I appreciate his content. I'm sure he doesn't want me to skip over this. All right. So a little bit more from Marubeni. Sorry. They signed a memorandum of understanding of cooperation in clean energy projects, of course, the UK government. You have to keep in mind the UK government, and you also have to keep in mind that, like, we talked about the whole quant connection for quite some time. That quant connection, as we know, for interoperability, you'll never see anything mentioned specifically quant in Jasmy officially, right? But the key thing is to recognize, like, everything that we cited before, even dating back to, was it Sorimitsu? They are actually ISO TC 307 compliant and tying all this together. But this for you should be your key takeaway in regards to the UK government. So let's get into this. Now, like last month, not that long ago, right? Like not even a full month ago. Fast forward to October 12th, 2023, cited from Marubeni, and it states, they are pleased to announce the signing on October 11th, 2023, a memorandum of understanding with the Department for Business and Trade of the United Kingdom government, UK, on comprehensive cooperation in clean energy projects, including offshore wind, green hydrogen business in the UK. When you get into this, you see plain as day, Japan and the UK. And signing this together. It says they had a signing ceremony. Most of us didn't see this, didn't see it reported. Sure, definitely not, right? Most content creators are covering other things, Ripple's XRP, Stellar, I don't know, all sorts of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you guys should still take note about this. So, from the far left is Marubeni Corporation Executive Officer, Chief Operating Officer, Power Division, Satoru Harada. And there's also the Ambassador of the United Kingdom to Japan, Julia Longbottom. And then the other guy on the far right is basically the Minister of Investment, as well as all these other things from the Department of Business and Trade of the UK, as well as Northern Ireland. Lord Johnson of Laneston. Wow, what a title. Listen to this for a second. The UK government committed to the UK achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Now, if you're wondering why 2050, this is now also in line for Society 5.0. So it's like now the UK is even part of Society 5.0. Now, doesn't this not take it to the next level? Yes, it does. They are also aiming to 2030, just like also Japan is. So when we talk about interoperability, it's more than just interoperability. It's also realizing that, like, how should I say this? I know how I should say this. Quant Network went to Japan. Quant Network tied to all this stuff that you see with the UK. Bank of International Settlements, Bank of England. That is worth paying attention to, and you can't dismiss that. To deploy offshore wind farms with a total capacity up to 50 GW, include 5 GW of floating offshore wind farms. I mean, you can get into that. The MOU affirms the partnership between the UK government, Marubeni, indicating UK government's commitment to supporting Marubeni's plans. Now, Marubeni's plans. UK government, Marubeni, Bijit, Jasmy, Japan, UK, Quant Network, interoperability. I mean, we could talk all day long about this. We already made those connections. But the point is this. It has partners to invest approximately what? 10 billion pounds, because that's a symbol for, pounds, 10 billion pounds. The last I checked, pounds are worth more than dollars. So 10 billion pounds of clean energy projects over the next 10 freaking years. When was this published? Well, again, October 12th, 2023. So that is worth pointing out. And I'm glad that Mr. Menenlogart wanted us to, give some highlight to this. Now, double checking his notes to make sure I'm good on this. All right. We're going to play the video now. Okay. I'm going to play roughly 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. And basically it's this right here. And I'm going to come out of the frame for a second. All right. It states, this is an inside look into the Sogo Shosha, Japan's unique trading giants, Marubeni Research Institute. Yes, Menenlogart is killing it with the research tonight. So this dates back to September 14, 2020. It says, in Japan, half a dozen general trading companies have been among the most influential players in both foreign and domestic trade for decades. Marubeni, Mitsubishi, Mitsui, Itochu, right? Like we said, some of these, of course, are part of Berkshire Hathaway's investments, and even Toyota Tsusho are true trading giants with annual turnover in many billions of euros. Their worldwide activities include production and trading in all sorts of products, from bulk raw materials to consumer goods, and investment in supply chains of a diverse number of industries, as well as acting organizers of infrastructure projects. I've gone ahead and fast forwarded to a key area. And basically speaking, yeah, and once we're done with this, I'll give you guys like the wrapped up last part of this, and we'll conclude it here in a bit. Thank you so much for watching this incredibly big and long deep dive, but it's good stuff. I'm telling you, it's real good stuff. Listen to this for a second. Inside look. Here we go.
Thank you for having me. You might be wondering why a non-Japanese is giving a lecture or a presentation on the Japanese trading firms, or what we call Soga Shosha in Japanese. Actually, my first job at Marubeni, when I was at the time in international human resources and career development, was to go around to all the business divisions and departments. We had no English, little English in those days, and I collected as much information as possible, and I wrote a pamphlet, a booklet, called Marubeni, a Trade Concern, which explained the Marubeni and the Japanese Soga Shosha to our overseas employees. And ever since that time, one of my roles has been to explain the Soga Shosha to business delegations, government delegations, clients, customers, our employees, interns, business schools and universities, and so on. So basically, that's why I'm here today. Anyway, this presentation is usually an hour and a half long, and I've condensed it to 45 minutes. So I'd like to get started because I have a lot of information to cover. So here we go. Let's go to the first slide. This is basically some of our business investments between 2013 and 18. We've made well more than 100 investments and agreements for major projects. Here I have 41 items, 26 countries, 14 different industries. Everything from, I won't read them all, but everything from power plants in Indonesia and Thailand to iron ore in Australia, copper in Chile, aviation parts and grain distribution in the United States, real estate development in China, cardboard and container manufacturing in India, feed and chicken processing in Myanmar, the supply of railway cars to Argentina, food product processing in Turkey, a solar power plant in the UAE, and even electricity retailing and cloud computing in Japan. Oh my goodness. Now, if you were a business professor and you saw this list, you might say one of two things. One, you might say, this is some sort of investment firm, hedge fund, private equity firm, some sort of investment firm. I want to make it crystal clear, we are not an investment firm. The other thing they might say is that this company is in deep trouble, much too diversified to survive. But what I'm going to do today is explain how being in all these different industries is actually part of our core business. And actually, our business is not that difficult to understand. We basically have two businesses. One is our traditional core business, that as a super trader, a super supplier, wholesaler, distributor in the supply chain, upstream from raw materials, midstream to the final product, and downstream to consumer in many different industries. And our other business is as an organizer of large-scale infrastructure projects. What's complex is how we carry this business out.
Notion has been the centerpiece of my workflow. It's quite literally an extension of my brain.
Okay, I'm going back to the title page. Soga Shosha. How is it translated usually in English? Usually it's translated as Japanese General Trading Company. Bad translation. These are the characters for Sogo Shosha in Japanese. So the first character looks very complex because that's the nuance. It means all-encompassing of many things. Go means united or combined. Sho, the third one, means commerce or business, and sha means company or organization. So the literal translation of Soga Shosha is to combine and unite all these products, services, functions, and even companies into one large business organization. So how I like to translate it is as the Japanese diversified trading conglomerates, given kind of nuance of complexity. Okay, moving right along. This is slide 2. I only want to mention a few things here. One is the Japanese Soga Shosha are unique to Japan. And I don't have time to explain how we became unique. However, the reason for this is basically our business development closely reflected that of Japan's own very unique economic development. First, in the latter half of the 19th century, when Japan embarked on a path of rapid industrialization and commercialization to catch up with the West, to build a strong military, and after World War II, when Japan's infrastructure and industry was destroyed and they had to rebuild rapidly. We played an important role in both those periods of economic development. The other thing I want to mention is that given our size and sophistication and diversity, we're just impossible to imitate. Many have tried, most all have failed. And the last thing I want to mention is we're not well known outside of Japan. Here I have 3 lists of the global Fortune 500 of the largest companies in the world. I have to mention about 10 years ago, we moved from Japanese and US accounting standards to international financial reporting standards. And this cut our sales by more than half, but we're still in the top half of the global Fortune 500. However, 20 years ago, the largest 5 companies in the global Fortune 500 were the Soga Shosha. And if you ask an international businessman if they'd ever heard of any of these Soga Shosha, they might have said, oh yeah, Mitsubishi Motors, the automobile company, or Sumitomo Metal, which was a steel manufacturer. No, Mitsubishi Motors and Sumitomo Metal were not Soga Shosha. So why didn't anyone know who the largest 5 companies in the world were? That's because our name is not found on consumer products. It's not found on retail outlets, even though the Soga Shosha own some of the most famous convenience store chains and supermarket chains in Japan, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Mitsubishi. We act as links behind the scenes, upstream, midstream, and downstream in the supply chain. Okay, who are we? Well, basically the big 5 are.
I need to pause there, because did you not hear what he just said? They work in the background. They don't make public announcements. They're not focused on retail. For all the people complaining about Jasmy, why don't you just make all these darn announcements and so on? This should be your reference every single time you see somebody fudding your Jasmy. That right there. Because you want to know something? This guy knows what he's talking about. He's explaining the bigger picture to you. Don't ever let a fudder steer you in the wrong direction when it comes to that. And play a little bit more. I just wanted to point that out because literally sometimes you might be hearing this and it might just be kind of going right past your head. And if you missed that, rewind it. Listen to that part again. All right, we're going to play a little bit more about this. I'm going to play just a few more minutes because this is really, really good. All right, a little extended coverage. This might, This might be one of the best Jasmy deep dive coverages I think we've ever done. I'm just going to throw that out there because it gets to the nitty gritty. It gets to the parts that we've all been thinking about. You know, like what is the bigger picture? Who are these guys that work in the background? And this is the most beautiful example. And again, you know, guys, if you see Menon Lagor on, you know, in the chat at some point, or you see him on crypto Twitter, you give the guy, you know, it's one thing to take the time. The guy is passionate about educating people about this. He's a great researcher. He deserves praise. You know, I can't thank him enough. I mean, he knocked it out of the park when it comes to this. So big up to you, Menon Lagor, whenever you're watching this. All right, let's jump back into this. Very, very good coverage, research. Let's see. I don't know, maybe 6 to 10 more minutes, something like that. We'll see. Here we go.
Marubeni, Itochu, Mitsui, Mitsubishi, and Sumitomo. Marubeni and Itochu, we were the same company before World War II. Here I just want to show you our size, so to speak. Basically, a sale. Oh, I forgot to mention also, Sojitz is another Soga Shosha. They're a merger between Nisho UI and Nichimen. And then Toyota Tsusho was the trading arm of Toyota Motor Corporation. And they bought a smaller Soga Shosha in order to diversify. But I'm talking about the big five today. So the sales for one big five Soga Shosha are about $90 billion. The total value of goods we handle would be about 160 billion, large. Total assets, about 100 billion. And the number of group companies, about 500. Most of these would be more than 50% owned. The other thing I'd like to mention is that in terms of our organizational structure and the business we're involved in, we're almost identical. We're basically the same. The only difference is our areas of strength. So Mitsubishi and Mitsui are very famous for, are very strong in energy, metals, and mineral resources. Itochu in upstream, downstream textiles. Marubeni in electric power plants and the food supply chain. So basically, it's just the difference in terms of the areas of strength. Okay, I'm going fast. I mentioned our importance to Japan's economy. You see on the upper left-hand pie charts, this is Japan's economy in the 1980s. It was by far the second largest economy in the world at the time. We had 9 Soga Shosha at the time. Japan's 9 Soga Shosha at the time handled nearly 70% of all Japan's total imports and more than 50% of all total exports. And the reason for this, as you know, Japan has no raw materials, so the Soga Shosha imported all the raw materials, supplied it to the manufacturers, who then produced value-added items, which we then exported for them. And this helped the Japanese manufacturers concentrate their resources on technology and production, which contributed greatly to Japan's economy. Now, in the mid-1980s, there was a structural shift or change. More than 90% of all Japan's foreign direct investment came after the mid-1980s. These are the manufacturers moving overseas. Toyota and Honda building automobile plants in the United States. So currently, there are 7 Soga Shosha, and we handle about 1/3 of all Japan's total imports. Large, but much smaller than before, and about 20% of total exports. And of course, this is because the Japanese manufacturers are manufacturing and selling their products in local overseas markets. However, in terms of third country trade, this is trade that we handle that doesn't touch Japan. So for example, textiles between China and Germany. It used to be 9% of our business, now it's more than 40%. So what this means is our global role in the supply chain is growing. Okay? What makes us unique? Basically, I'm looking at 3 distinguishing features. Now, the first one is what I call scope and scale. Following World War II, the Soga Shosha were basically just traders or middlemen between sellers and buyers. Our profit margins were very small, so there are only 2 ways to make a profit. One was volume. We had to increase sales. We had to get out there and really hustle, finding new markets, new customers, even helping our current customers expand their business. The other way to make a profit was to take this trading expertise that we had and apply them to as many different products as possible.
All right, we can listen to that guy all day long. Hold on a second, let me mute that. because when there's sound, you might not hear me good. So we could listen to that guy all day long, you know, and he's got a lot of great info. I just can't have you guys sit here for like another hour in that regard. But basically, I will drop the link just in case if you want to watch a little bit more about that. Here it is. Okay. It's in the comments. But what I want to point out is that last comment that gentleman made in regards to trade and all this stuff. It all circles back to, for instance, this right here, this memorandum. Just the last little reminder. Share this real quick. And it's this right here. I know I mentioned it earlier, but just in case you forgot, it's basically the Memorandum of Understanding with the Department for Business and Trade of the UK government, kind of just like what he was talking about. Comprehensive cooperation in clean energy projects. He literally, mentioned some examples about like everything we've been talking about. You know, we talk about the Rice Crop Consortium and all that stuff, including offshore wind and green hydrogen business. Again, if you were listening to that guy, this further pounds it home that much more. And there you go. I mean, look, Japan, the UK. I mean, you know, and how long ago this was published? October 12th. It's just something that kind of flew under the radar. Thank God for people like Menno Lagwar bringing it to us. I mean, he knocked it out of the park as far as I'm concerned. Now, there is going to be a continued version of this in regards to the research. I don't know if it's as long because, you know, if anything, we can't just, you know, do like hour or 2 hours every single time. Not everybody will watch it. But he wants to finish his research about zoomed out Japan economy, all the big players connecting to each other. He wants to, for instance, look for like this, you know, like how Japan and Jasmy's rooted into all this. Talks about Japan industrial partners. And your key takeaway should be, for instance, Toshiba, Vio, companies behind this group, and how it all basically comes together. So that's something else that he's working on. Really looking forward to it. And Menno Lagwar, hats off to you. Once again, you killed it. You just absolutely did awesome with this. And always look forward to collaborating with you again.